Hey, welcome back to the mobilization of the week. Now, whenever we can, we always want to try to move with mobilization. In the old historical physical therapy terms, we called this mobilization with movement. That makes perfect sense. So the one we're going to take on today is a little bit longer lever, not knee bent, but long lever. And more importantly, we're going to be weight bearing. So what we're going to do today is do what we call this long lever posterior distraction. So the band is going high up in the hip, really as high up in the hip as I can, and I'm going to put some load on it going this direction. And a couple things are happening in this when we do this. When I'm loading this up, what I'm really trying to do is improve hip flexion. And what we know is that when the hip is flexing or bringing knee to chest, there's a small posterior glide of the hip. I mean, the hip isn't just a perfect rotary joint like on rotating around an axis. It actually has roll, slide, and glide. The multiple motions of the hip allow for good hip motion. And one of the things I'm trying to do here, one is encourage the natural movement of the joint during this movement. Second, I'm able to stay loaded, so it's an easy way to get myself movement prepped, because it looks like a lot of the things I'm already doing to get primed anyway. The other thing that we love about this is that if I fold forward, I might feel tension, but I may not feel tension in the tissues that need it or may be stiff. And you can look at the distance between the musculature and connective tissue at my knee or even in the middle of my hamstring and what's going on up top. I am much thicker up here. These tissues are designed and built to be much more resistant to load. So they may need a little bit more load. So what's happening is that I'm able to sort of put a little bit of impetus, a little impulse into the tissues I'm trying to change. In this situation, much higher up in the hip. So in this position, what I do is I run out, and I've got a lot of band tension here, pretty significant band tension. And the first thing that I can do is I can think about folding forward down. So now I'm fixed, I'm weight bearing here, and now I'm going to get much better hip hinging into this position. And I'm doing is moving the pelvis on the stable femur. So this allows me to work from the top down. Now, simultaneously, I can also go forward and flex and extend the hip. I'm not worried about a perfectly round back here. I want to try to be as neutral as I can, because if I'm missing hip flexion, I know my pelvis is going to round a little bit and I won't get what I'm after. What I'm trying to do is bring my knee to the front of the pelvis. So what's nice about this is I have two different ways to load. I can load from the top down. I can also load from the bottom up. Now, one of the great things about this position is that I can change and suddenly take leg across the body and do the same things, working from the top down, working from the bottom up. I can also take myself into a wider position, working on flexing and extending the leg into something that looks a little bit more like a wide stance. So suddenly now, look at all the positions and options that I have. I can even rotate the leg in, rotate the leg out, and engage in what we call informed freestyling. So typically we love a couple minutes of this as a movement preparation prior to loading. It's easy to get a whole bunch of athletes through it. We're weight bearing, we're moving. This is one of our favorite let's get prep movements. Understanding what our intentions are here to be able to teach the leg to flex against the stiff hamstring, to try to get better hip flexion all through that motion, and then being limited by my creativity about what this leg is doing relative to the rest of my body. Flexing from the top down, from the bottom up. If I'm trying to improve my long sit or my long lever hinge, then not so much squat hinge, this posterior band distraction is the game.